Nina. I grew up in Oakland in a very diverse neighborhood. You know, I had a big family, so all the kids would come and play with us, come to our house and hang out, sit on the porch, you know, telling jokes. Very diverse neighborhood. I mean, it just wasn't predominantly African American. I mean, it was Latino, white, Asian. So we got along with everybody. So I had three brothers. It was 3 boys and 3 girls. They dubbed us the Black Brady Bunch. And ironically, I have a brother named Peter and one named Greg, which go figure. So grew up, I had a fairly good childhood. Our playground was actually Laney College in Oakland, Peralta Laney College, in the Oakland Museum. So we used to all go down there and play because we didn't live too far from there. So we would just explore the neighborhood, picking berries, you know. I was more like a tomboy, so I would hang with my brothers a lot, and my sisters too. So, went to school. I started having trouble like my late teens or like in the middle of my teens. Like I hooked up with this guy and he was verbally and physically abusive. And I didn't know at the time, it was a shock to me. I didn't really know what domestic violence, they call it now. I didn't really know what it was. I just accepted it and thought maybe he'll change and he'll get over it and we can, you know, move on. But that didn't happen. I went through that for like 5 years of my teenage years. So that stunted me a lot from going to school. I was in and out of school. Also, at that time, back then Oakland was fairly safe, you know, I thought. You know, it wasn't too much of nothing going on at that time. But I was coming home from this party, it was late, and I felt somebody following behind me, and the guy caught up with me and actually abducted me, and I was right in front of my house, but I was too scared to scream. And he put a knife on me and said, "If you scream, I will kill you." And he took me around the corner and he sexually assaulted me. And I was just like in so much shock at that time. I'm only 14 years old. And I didn't know whether to get up or move. He had left, but I was so in shock that I just stood there, laid there for like 20 minutes to make sure he was really, really gone. And then finally, I got the nerve to get up and I went in the house. I didn't tell my mom. I just went straight in the bathtub and I cried, and I didn't tell anybody until recently because I was too ashamed. I was thinking it was my fault. And now that this Me Too movement stuff is out, I'm glad that it is, because back then nobody really was saying anything about sexual assault or molesting or anything. So that happened to me, and I guess then I started getting into smoking weed more. I was already doing it, but I just started experimenting more with it and try to erase the image of the sexual assault. And I went through school, started getting jobs. I didn't go to college right off. I started getting jobs, you know. Then the nice neighborhood that we moved in, my mom came to us, talked to us one time, and told us we have to move. You know, it was housing assistance with housing. I guess they call it housing authority. You know, we have to move. We're gonna move in the projects, and we were like, what? You know, we lived in this nice neighborhood, all our friends were there, wasn't no drama. And so then when we moved in the projects, it was a whole different culture to us and my brothers and sisters. But somehow we adapted and we, caught on to what was going on. They say you're like a product in your environment sometime. And, I learned a lot from living there, but also I learned a few bad things that picked up a few bad things that I shouldn't have picked up. So I got into criminal stuff. I started using crack cocaine. I started passing fictitious checks to banks. My brother came home. He was already in the life in trouble. He came home with a money order machine and said, we can make a lot of money. We can make money orders. And we started cashing them at the banks, and I just got so addicted to that lifestyle. I could get money fast like this, and I did that for a few years. So off and on, I'm in jail, out of jail, until the judge told me, the next thing, if I see you again, you're gonna go to the penitentiary. And that scared me to death. I did not want to go to the penitentiary because I heard all these bad things about it. Because I used to want to be a cop but that went out the door when I started doing criminal things. The last jail time I did was in Santa Rita County Jail, and it is the worst thing ever. And it just really straightened me up. I'm like, when I get out of here, I'm never gonna go back to jail. And I think that was like in 2008, and I have not been back ever since because you don't want to go to Santa Rita. It's terrible. So I got out, and I still was struggling, but I knew something else was wrong. I'm having flashbacks of my past, but that was very traumatic for me when I got sexually assaulted. But I still hadn't talked to nobody about it. So I got out, I started doing drugs again, but I didn't get in trouble again as far as the law, but I was, sabotaging my own self, getting in trouble, using my money, I had jobs, but then I'll lose jobs, just madness, back and forth. So my moment of clarity, I guess, came when I just got tired. I'm like, I want something different for myself. I want to do something different. And maybe I should see a therapist and see how that works out. So I started seeing this therapist, and all this stuff just started coming out. My domestic violence. In between that time, let me back up. I got married at the age of 25. I finally left my childhood boyfriend, but met this guy at my job, and we got married within 7 months. And people are like, you don't even know him that well. I'm like, he's great. I'm in love with him. And he ended up being physically abusive. And I just couldn't believe it. I was in shock. I'm like, he was so nice. I didn't see the red flags. And so the first time he hit me, I left. I went back to my mom, and somehow he came and talked me back into coming back with him, and he would change and all of this. But none of that changed. It even got worse. So we ended up getting high together. So of course it was chaos, it was madness, I was getting abused, we were getting high. So it was like the blind leading the blind. So I'm like, I don't want this in my life. So I left my husband, got with this great guy, but I didn't know if he was great. I'm like, is he gonna be just like my husband? And, but we stayed together 5 years, but through that time I was still like sabotaging my own self, using, because I couldn't deal with just the pain of the physical abuse and the sexual assault. And still I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell anybody till like recently, maybe like a year ago. I told my sister, and she just couldn't believe it. She was like, I can't believe it. And sometimes it still haunts me. So that's why I started seeing a therapist. In the African American culture, we look at that as taboo. If somebody says, "Oh, you're crazy," or you got something wrong with you, we just deal with it. And so I decided to step outside the box and see a therapist, and it was the best thing that could ever happen to me. She told me, I would definitely diagnose you with PTSD from what you have been through. And I can see that because I actually thought PTSD was just guys coming from the military. I just didn't know it was something traumatic that happens to you. And so I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see that, because even to this day, like, I don't like nobody walking behind me. It freaks me out. She said I would definitely diagnose you with PTSD. But I did continue seeing her because I think they had changed therapists. They have to switch every so often. So I'm like, I don't want to feel like telling my whole story again. So I never went back, and I was still using off and on. And then I think what made me come to a moment of clarity is when I lost one of the jobs that I really liked. I was getting depressed. I didn't want to get out the bed. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like, what is going on? And I would sabotage my own self, losing the jobs. And so when I lost this particular job, I'm like, I kind of went down in the slump. I didn't work for like 7 months, and I always worked, even when I was, screwing up. But I said, something has have to change. So I got out of the slump. I started talking to people. I talked to my family. I just came clean with everything. It's funny now, but it wasn't funny then. So I was addicted to crack cocaine, and so when I was seeing a therapist I don't know if you've heard of Clinic Without Walls, but I was seeing a therapist in there, and she was inside a apartment building, which I used to go and meet up with my friends and get high. So one particular day, I saw the drug dealer coming out the building. And I was like, hey, I used to sometimes get credit. I'm like, can you give me credit? And this was before I saw the therapist. And, he fronted me some, put it in my pocket. So when I saw the therapist, I guess I pulled my phone out to turn it off or whatever. While I did that, the piece of rock fell out of my pocket. So when I got home, I was like, oh my God, I freaked out, and I called her. I'm like, did you see I dropped something in there? And she's like, no, I didn't see anything. But later on, she knew, she found it. She said, I thought it was a piece of candy, and I threw it in the garbage. And I was like, oh my God. So this was later on when I laughed about it. I'm like, oh my God, this is when I knew I have to stop, because I was freaking out. So anyway, I just went cold turkey and stopped on my own, and things started to look better. I got a job. I'm working at a family service agency, which working with the mental health and the homeless. And between that time, I also I put myself in a drug program, because I'm like, I probably was in a little denial. I'm like, I need structure. I just need, because I have no kids, no husband. There's nobody there to tell me what I can do and what I can't do. So I ran a little while. I'm like, okay, I'll go in there for structure. So I went in there, and it was like a big college to me. And I had fun, but I never focused on what was the real problem, my drug addiction. Eventually, they ended up kicking me out after 19 months. but that really gave me a reality check. Like, people aren't playing. This is serious. I can't be playing with my life like this. So I had jobs after that, and I just went cold turkey. But this particular job I have now, I really like. It's working with the mentally ill and the homeless. And some of the things that they go through, I have been through, like, trying to get housing, finding the resources that'll help you get through whatever you need to get through out here. You can do it in the city. This is the most spoiled city in the country. You can't go hungry in San Francisco. But anyway, I grew up a little bit, looked back on some things and said, how stupid can I be? And I ended up joining Solve, speaking at, they had a conference they were doing, like a networking conference, and they had an open mic, and I did some poetry on domestic violence. And they was like, hey, you would be really good in Solve, we share our lives, experience, and voices. And I'm like, sure, why not? So I hooked up with them, did the training, and I love it. I get to speak in front of, if you could imagine, police, the San Francisco police on CIT, crisis intervention training. And when I first started, I was so scared. I was like, oh my God, how am I going to speak in front of police? Like, they're not, I don't really like them. So I turned them down a lot of times when they asked me, and then I finally said, okay, I'll do it. And it's the best thing I could have ever done. I love it. It's not as bad as I thought it would be. They all know me now. I speak like every other month. They're going to start it back up in August. And I've been through a lot, but I got through it. I picked myself up. I'll fall down and pick myself up, but I've been up for a long time now. I went through, also I didn't mention, cancer runs in my family, and my brother Peter passed away. I have his name on my arm right now. And so that really took a lot out of me also. I spiraled out of control after that. I didn't know how to deal with it. He was the middle boy, I'm the middle girl. We were very close. He died at the young age of 19, and that really took me for a loop. Even though it's been since 1988, it still bothers me to this day. And so 30 years later, I just lost my mom last year. But I'm proud to say I didn't spiral out of control. I dealt with it, and I'm still dealing with it. I'm still processing it. But I'm getting through it. And I'm proud of myself because I have never done that before. Every time something happens, I usually go get high or do something crazy. But this time, I just stuck with it, and I'm in school, my job is doing well, and I'm good now. Because dealing with Solve, that's how I started becoming more aware, and I didn't know anything about stigmas or anything like that. And for our culture, for African American culture, it's like a stigma, like, what? Oh, that person is, oh, get away, that person is crazy, or they didn't know how to deal with it or didn't want to deal with it, they just swept it under the rug. I don't know if that's from ancestors before me, that's how they dealt with it. But they never, dealt with the problem. Nobody ever talked about it. Either you deal with stuff in an African American family, you just deal with it. Nobody ever pinpoints, okay, or talk about it, or, say, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is the plan. that never happens. Rarely does that happen in African American family. But I also will say that, despite of that, we did have family meetings, you know, talk about what was going on with us, but far as anything like personal like that, we didn't bring up. So we just didn't ever talk about it. And I felt, you know, I felt that I have a voice that I want to get what's going on. I want to say what's going on with me in my mind. I do. So when I met with the therapist and talked with Saul, I'm like, this is not weird. This is not weird at all. A lot of people go through things, not just you. A lot of people go through things and they talk about it and they get through it. And that's why I was like, okay, I'm with this. I can deal with this. And that's why I was able to talk to my family, talk to my sister about it years later, but I still did it, you know, because I never would have even talked to them about this. I would say, please look out for the red flags, definitely, because I didn't. You know, you can't be blinded by love. It has to be more than love. You have to know the red flags, because this could have been, I could have lost my life plenty of times, and I'm thankful that I didn't. And it's very serious. Some people, I don't know, look at domestic violence as not being so serious, but it is serious. I tried to get out multiple times, but it didn't work. And finally, when I finally got tired, I was like, that's it. I don't care if I have to fight my way out. The Tina Turner movie, What's Love Got to Do With It, always gave me motivation, because I swear that was my story, and how she literally fought to get out of that relationship. Hopefully nobody won't have to do that or go through that, but you just gotta look for the red flags. I would say in my situation, I didn't look for the red flags, but I learned them over the years. You have to, and if you see it, you either get out, or if you want to stay, you know, go to counseling and try to work it out, couples therapy or whatever. But I would say, if someone is hitting you, it's not going to get better, it's just going to get worse. Well, I didn't do medication, but I'm not against it. And the therapy role helped me a lot. It helped me to have a voice, to be, you know, honest, upfront, whatever's happening with me, to talk about it and not just hold it in, stuff it in, because I stuffed a lot of stuff in without, you know, I'm like, I don't want to bore people with my problems. There's something far worse than what I'm going through, and I just stuffed a lot, but that's not good to do that. So when I met this therapist and I got all this stuff out, I was like, it was like a weight lifted off of my shoulder. I'm like, oh my God, I've been holding all of this in. Of course I was boo-hooing, you know, a couple of sessions, and I'm like, I've been holding all this in. This is a lot to hold in for years and years and years, and it just taught me to be more open and just, you know, talk about it. And it has impacted me a lot. And matter of fact, I'm going to be using a therapist at my job, because I work with therapists and, you know, nurse practitioners and all of that. We have a program called EAP that we can use a therapist, and I'm definitely going to call and start using a therapist again. You know, help with my, you know, grief that I'm going through for the loss of my mom and stuff like that. Do I do? I love being around family, so family is a big support for me, and keeping my job is a big support for me. They're big supporters, and just stay on the straight and narrow path and not, go to the left. I feel confident enough right now that I'm doing so good that I just want to just keep doing. I do self-care. I write. I still write. I write poetry. That keeps me. I'm in school. I don't want to have too much on my plate, but just enough to keep me balanced. So, I do school. I write. Hang out with family, and soak my feet, do my nails. All of that stuff helps me. Care looks like for me that just what is self-explanatory. You just have to take care of yourself. Even if like if I'm at work and I'll say, I need a day, they give us the opportunity to take a mental health day off just to, to rewind some stuff, or just to get away, because working with mentally ill and the homeless can be very challenging. So you just have to step back when you feel like you're getting burnt out. So, I'll take a day and relax, just relax. I'll take a whole day just to relax and collect my thoughts, and that's what I do. Oh, it has, like I said, it made me more aware. It made me have a voice. Like, always had a voice, but now that I learned that I'm not the only one that's dealing with mental health challenges, like far as depression or schizophrenic, whatever somebody has. It's just made me to be more open to it and look at it in a different light, and not stigmatize, because I stigmatize also, like, okay, that person is crazy, I don't want to be around them. But now that I work with mental health, the mentally ill, I see, on the other side, I see a whole different light, and it has played a great big role in what I'm doing now in my work that I do now. You have to have some type of education and experience with it, I think, a little bit. It plays a big role in my what I'm focusing on now, because eventually I want to get a degree in social work, be a licensed social worker. So I'm very focused on that right now. Well, I'm happy at the place I am now. You can get out of the rut. Don't ever think you can't get out of it, because you can get out of it. It may take some time. You may have some obstacles that you have to deal with, but it's not going to stay the same. You can only, once you fall down, you have to get back up and give it another try. And that's what I always say. Once you fall down, get back up and try it again.
Yeah. It was called Clinics Without Walls?
Clinic Without Walls. And it was students that were, interns that were training to learn how to be a therapist, or going to school and then have some hours where they, do therapy sessions with people.
Okay.
And it was great. I liked it.
And do they do it in their own homes, or is it in
different places?
Okay.
But this particular one was in an apartment building in the Valencia Gardens out here in San Francisco.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, just curious. That was interesting.